Today we take a look at the base model EMTB from Trek, the 2022 Rail 5. We'll go over some basic information you might want to know and rate it on the Sender Frankie scale to see if the 2022 Trek Rail 5 is worth the $5,649. The new 2022 Trek Rail 5 is made of a full aluminum frame, a 29-inch wheel for the front and rear, paired with their MinoLink system to make it a mullet-ready EMTB. It also has 160 millimeters of travel up front and 150 millimeters travel in the rear. The Trek Rail has won Best in its Class review from Loam, as well as Best EMTB of the Year from MBR, and even Rob from Rob Rides has picked up the Trek Rail as his own personal EMTB. The Trek Rail has definitely been making some history with its 2021 to 2022 model, but today we are here to find out if the Rail 5 base model from Trek is worth the $5,649. Before we begin, I hope you all can help me by smashing that like button. It'll definitely help this channel out a ton. And also don't forget to subscribe to the channel and get more info on your favorite EMTBs. A quick disclaimer. None of my advice is professional advice. I just love everything about EMTBs, and these are just my opinions, and it doesn't make it 100% true. I make tons of mistakes. For example, in my last video, I could have sworn when I was doing my research that a Diore M420 brake caliper was a dual piston, but it turned out to be a 4-piston brake. Thank one of my viewers for letting me know so I can correct it and get the right information onto your hands. This rating system is not perfect by any means, and I do need your help to improve it. So please leave your comments down below. So with that being said, for those who are new to my channel, my rating system is based on a 10-point average system. The bike will be ranked based on 5 categories: cost, battery, torque, integration, and parts that don't match the price. We then average all the categories together and place it on the scale, and at the end of the year we could possibly define a Sender Frankie's EMTB of the year. Let's begin with our first category. The Trek Rail 5 has a $5,649 MSRP. For a base model, that really isn't all that bad. The 2022 Turbo Levo alloy has a MSRP in the mid 5,000s as well. It's great to see the big guys come out with something that we can all reasonably afford. Dropping $5,000 on an EMTB is still quite expensive, but it is in part why I'm making my ranking system to help you make that decision. I think it's good to see the competition amongst these two companies. It's good for us consumers. So I give the Trek Rail 5 an 8 out of 10 in this category. And just like the 2022 Turbo Levo alloy, the Trek Rail comes with a 500 watt-hour battery. I think a standard battery size in 2022 should be somewhere close to 600 watt-hours. Back in 2019, we've already seen a 540 watt-hour to a 630 watt-hour being placed in some of these EMTBs. In this category, I give the Rail 5 a 3 out of 10. Exactly how I scored the 2022 Turbo Levo alloy. Next, we look at the motor. The Trek Rail 5 comes with a Bosch CX Performance with 85 Nm of torque. A very solid motor. You can't find any better reviews on the internet these days. And speaking to some of my friends who ride them, they all have great things to say. But in our rating system, I can only base this rating on the torque specs. But I am working on a solution to change this rating. So for now, I give a score of 8 out of 10. Next, we look at the integration. The Trek Rail 5 comes with the Bosch Purion display. And if you've been following along, you know when it comes to the Bosch Purion display, I'm just not a fan. It's bulky and it's been around for quite a while. But Trek has also put some thought into the rib system. The rib is a one-piece battery and cover with a built-in handle that can easily be removed and reinstalled in the frame with no tools. If you own a 2019 Norco Range VLT like me, you'll appreciate the thought put into this. Hassle-free sounds extremely good to me, so I give a solid 7 out of 10 in the integration department, given that it has the Purion display. Now let's look at the parts that don't match the price. In this rating, we look at 4 categories: fork, suspension, drivetrain, and the brakes. The higher the score, the lower the average. And starting with the fork, the Rail 5 is spec'd with a RockShox 35 Gold. I think while the RockShox Gold is a good base model spec, I think a RockShox Domain Art would even be a much better fork for this base tier. You can't really go wrong with the 38mm stanchion, so 1 point added. Now let's look at the rear shock. The Rail 5 comes with a RockShox Select Plus. It is a decent spec for 150mm rear travel. You can abuse these shocks, no points added here. Now let's look at the drivetrain. The Rail 5 has an M61000 shifter and derailleur combo, a base tier Shimano drivetrain, and a base tier model, an expected combo, so no points added here as well. Next, we look at the brakes. It is a DeRoy 420 piston setup, which is also a base tier DeRoy brake. These brakes are well within the price range of the base model, so no points added as well. With only 1 point added in the category of parts that don't match the price, we have an average of 9 out of 10 in this category, which is actually pretty surprising. So let's recap on the total score. With an MSRP of $5,649, it scored a total 8 out of 10 on cost. A 500 watt-hour battery scored a 3 out of 10. With 85 newton meters of torque, it scored at 8 out of 10. It did decent in the integration department with a 7 out of 10 despite having a Purion display, and it did superb and it scored a 9 out of 10 in the parts that don't match the price, giving us a total of 35 points out of 50 with an average score of 7 on the Send It Frankie scale. So do I think the 2022 Trek Rail is worth the $5,649? A solid yes. You are buying a Bosch CX performance line, which has all the best reviews so far. And despite my thoughts on the Purion display, Trek has put lots of thought into this bike, making it easy to work with. And at the cost of $5,649, you have room for some pretty sick upgrades. So there we have it, our fourth bike on the list. The Trek Rail 5 came just short of the 2022 Turbo Levo alloy. A very hard decision to make if you're considering these two bikes. Same battery, almost the same cost, similar tier in parts. I believe the battle of these two bikes pretty much comes down to which motor you prefer. Just specs alone isn't enough to determine which one is better suited for you. Both bikes are made by solid and reputable brands with some solid tech behind them. So if you want more information on the 2022 Turbo Levo alloy, click on this video. And with that, we'll see you on the next one. Peace! We're going to St. George, baby!